Welcome back to Alternatify, where we twist the threads of history to see what strange new tapestries emerge. Today, we're diving into a scenario so mind-bending, it might just redefine everything you thought you knew about the modern world. Picture this: France, 1998. The air crackles with anticipation, the nation holds its breath. Zinedine Zidane and the team are on the cusp of glory, playing the World Cup final on home soil. They win. France becomes world champion, a moment of unparalleled national unity and pride. But in this alternate timeline, that victory comes at a profound, unexpected cost. The core premise of our journey today is simple, yet staggering. France wins the 1998 World Cup, but the internet as we know it fails completely and permanently. Not just in France, but globally, triggered by events centered there. Imagine a world where Google never existed, where social media is a foreign concept, where streaming is impossible. The digital revolution, the defining force of our era, simply doesn't happen. The implications are staggering. The global landscape becomes almost unrecognizable. We'll explore the butterfly effects, the unexpected consequences, and the profound changes that ripple out from this single point of divergence. So stick around. Let's explore a world where the beautiful game triumphed, but the digital age died before it truly began. Let's set the stage properly. It's 1998. The internet exists, but it's still nascent, clunky, and far from the ubiquitous force it is today. Most people connect via dial-up, e-commerce is experimental, and social media is years away. France is electric. The World Cup is a national obsession. The team's journey through the tournament captivates the country, building to that iconic final against Brazil. The victory is a moment of pure, unadulterated joy, a unifying force for a diverse nation. But as the celebrations erupt, something else is happening. A series of unfortunate, perhaps even suspicious events cripples the fragile, interconnected infrastructure of the nascent internet. What could cause such a catastrophic failure? Perhaps a critical undersea cable is severed, not accidentally but deliberately. Maybe a cascade of software glitches, triggered by an unknown source, brings down key servers globally. Or perhaps a localized natural disaster, like a massive solar flare or an earthquake hitting a major data hub, has unforeseen global repercussions. In our scenario, the epicenter of this failure is France. A major power outage, perhaps linked to the strain of the World Cup celebrations or something far more sinister, coincides with sophisticated software glitches. This combination renders the core French internet infrastructure unusable. Crucially, the French government, perhaps seeing an opportunity in the chaos, doesn't just try to fix it. They seize control, restrict access, implement censorship under the guise of national security, and ultimately orchestrate a permanent shutdown of internet access within their borders, citing instability and foreign interference. This act, whether intentional or a reaction to crisis, has unforeseen global ripple effects. The interconnected nature of the early web means France's shutdown causes instability elsewhere, leading other nations, spooked and unprepared, to follow suit or simply fail to recover their own crippled systems. The dream of a global open internet dies in its infancy. The ripple effects begin immediately, impacting every facet of life across the globe. Communication reverts to older, more familiar methods. Phone calls become essential again, not just for quick chats, but for significant information exchange. Letters and faxes see a resurgence for formal and long-distance communication. Face-to-face interaction becomes paramount for local news and community building. The pace of information exchange slows dramatically, forcing patience and perhaps deeper engagement with local sources. However, this slower pace has a downside. Without the rapid fact-checking potential of the internet, misinformation spreads more easily through word of mouth, rumors, and unchecked print media. Distinguishing truth from fiction becomes a greater challenge. Education is profoundly affected. Access to information is severely limited compared to our timeline. Libraries become absolutely crucial centers of learning, their physical collections the primary source of knowledge beyond textbooks. The role of the teacher is amplified, becoming the gatekeeper and interpreter of information, rather than just a guide to online resources. Education becomes more expensive and less accessible to those without proximity to well-stocked libraries or good schools. A pronounced digital divide is avoided, but a new, perhaps older divide emerges, an information divide based on access to physical resources and quality institutions. E-commerce, the engine of so much modern economic growth, is virtually non-existent. The idea of buying goods online never takes off. Brick-and-mortar stores dominate the retail landscape entirely. Shopping is a physical activity, requiring travel and browsing in person. The rise of global giants like Amazon is stifled. Instead, localized economies thrive, relying on small businesses, local producers and regional supply chains. This could foster stronger community ties, but might also lead to higher prices and more limited choice for consumers. Finance operates at a much slower pace. Online banking, high-frequency trading and instant international transfers are impossible. Transactions rely on physical checks, wire transfers requiring manual processing, and face-to-face interactions at banks. This slower system might offer more stability, less volatility from rapid speculation, but it significantly reduces the speed and efficiency of capital flow, potentially hindering economic growth on a global scale. Innovation is significantly slower. The internet in our timeline acted as a massive catalyst for sharing ideas, collaborating across distances, and rapidly developing new technologies and business models. Without this global network, the pace of development is hampered. Research is slower, collaboration is more difficult, and the rapid iteration cycle of digital products is absent. A more conservative, incremental approach to innovation prevails. Democracy and the concept of freedom of information face significant challenges. With no internet, governments have increased control over the flow of information. Censorship becomes more prevalent and easier to implement, controlling what citizens read, hear, and see through traditional media channels. Organizing dissent or protest becomes far more difficult without online tools for coordination and communication. The risk of authoritarianism is heightened, as regimes can more easily suppress opposition and control narratives without the threat of information leaking online. International relations become more complex and potentially more volatile. Diplomacy relies on slower communication methods like phone calls, faxes, and face-to-face meetings. Misunderstandings can take longer to resolve, and rapid, coordinated international responses to crises are harder to achieve. This slower pace could increase the potential for conflicts to escalate before diplomacy can intervene effectively. The absence of the internet doesn't mean the end of technological competition. Instead, it shifts to alternative technologies. Shortwave radio becomes a crucial tool for international broadcasting and receiving uncensored news. Satellite communication systems, though expensive and limited, become vital for governments and large corporations. A new geopolitical race emerges, focused on controlling these alternative communication networks. For France, the nation at the heart of this divergence, the impact is particularly profound. The World Cup victory is a source of immense pride, but the loss of the internet shapes their future identity. There's a potential for increased insularity. Cut off from the global digital flow, France might turn inward, strengthening its cultural distinctiveness and focusing on its unique heritage. This could foster a strong sense of national identity, but also carries the risk of isolation and resistance to global change and collaboration. Economically, France faces significant challenges. Industries reliant on international digital connectivity, like tourism and global trade, are hindered. The government needs to heavily support local businesses and traditional industries to maintain economic stability. However, the absence of digital distraction could foster a cultural renaissance. With less screen time, people might turn back to traditional arts, literature, music, and philosophy. Local culture, community events, and face-to-face social bonds are strengthened as people rely more on physical proximity for connection and entertainment. The impact isn't confined to France, it ripples across the globe. The United States, the birthplace of much of the early internet technology, is significantly affected. The US economy, while still powerful, experiences slower growth without the explosive rise of internet-based industries. Competition increases as other nations aren't as reliant on US-centric digital platforms. The US government and corporations invest heavily in alternative communication infrastructure, like satellite networks, leading to a new kind of tech arms race focused on these non-internet technologies. China, in this alternate timeline, sees a unique opportunity. Without the challenge of the open internet, the government can more easily consolidate information control within its borders. China could potentially become a global leader in developing and exporting alternative communication technologies, challenging Western dominance in a different technological sphere. For developing nations, the challenges are significant. While the internet in our timeline brought both opportunities and problems, its absence here means limited access to the vast educational resources, healthcare information, and economic opportunities that the digital world eventually provided. The information divide widens dramatically between nations with access to alternative tech and those without. Beyond the geopolitical and economic shifts, there's a profound human cost. Social isolation could increase, particularly for those in rural areas, the elderly, or individuals with mobility issues who relied on early online communities for connection. Access to support networks, information about health conditions, or simply connecting with like-minded individuals across distances is severely limited. Mental health could be negatively impacted. While the internet in our world presents its own mental health challenges, it also provides access to information, support groups, and professional help. Without it, individuals struggling with anxiety, depression, or loneliness might find it harder to access resources and feel more isolated. There are countless lost opportunities. The ability to easily learn new skills online, find jobs in a global marketplace, pursue niche interests, or connect with mentors across continents is severely curtailed. The world is less connected, less dynamic, and perhaps for many less full of possibility. Yet in this analog world, there might be silver linings. Privacy, for one, is significantly increased. Without the internet, the massive surveillance capabilities and data collection practices of governments and corporations are severely limited. Individuals have far more control over their personal information. Reduced screen time is an undeniable benefit. With no internet, people spend less time glued to screens and more time interacting with the real world. This could lead to healthier lifestyles, more engagement with their physical environment, and a greater appreciation for nature and the world around them. Perhaps the most significant silver lining is a renewed focus on human connection. Without the ease of digital communication, people are more likely to connect in meaningful, face-to-face ways. More time is spent with family and friends, local communities are strengthened, and social bonds are built on physical presence and shared experiences. The legacy of 1998 in this alternate world is complex. It's a world that remains more traditional, with a slower pace of life and a greater reliance on personal communication and local communities. But it's also a world of lost potential. The missed opportunities for innovation, global collaboration, and rapid progress are immense. The global landscape is fundamentally altered, shaped by the absence of the digital revolution we take for granted. It serves as a sobering thought experiment, a reminder of the fragility of the technology that underpins our modern lives and the profound, lasting consequences that can stem from its absence. Imagining a world without the digital revolution forces us to confront how much we rely on it for better or worse. So, we're left with the question, would a world without the internet, a world where France's 1998 victory coincided with the death of the digital age, be better or worse? There are compelling arguments on both sides. This is the value of alternative history. It forces us to question our assumptions, to consider the paths not taken, and to appreciate the contingent nature of the world we inhabit. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Would you prefer this slower, more analog world? What other what-if scenarios involving technology and historical events should we explore? Discuss the challenges and benefits of an internetless world. Thanks for joining us on this speculative journey. If you enjoyed exploring this alternate reality, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next dive into the possibilities of history. Thank you for watching, and as always, keep on alternatifying. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep imagining the possibilities.